Recording with Dr. Edward Bartlett on Tuesday, March 28th, 2023 at 3:08 p.m. Eastern time. Guys, if you want to support the podcast and you're watching on Rumble, click that little red button. That's Locals. That's like Rumble's version of Patreon. Go get free stuff, exclusive content, use promo code Tommy and blah, blah, blah. That's what keeps the podcast going. That's how the sausage is made. Dr. Bartlett, please introduce yourself, sir.
Hey, good to be with you today, Tommy. My name is Edward Bartlett, based in Maryland. I'm the president of SAVE, and a partner group called the Coalition to End Domestic Violence. We're very concerned about domestic violence and abuse. We're also very concerned about the growing problem of false allegations in American society.
Hmm. Uh, Real quick, if you don't mind, where in Maryland?
Based in Rockville, Maryland.
I was I moved out of Maryland in November. I was in Ocean City slash Salisbury for about 5 years. That's where my
Okay.
parents are. Yeah, and parents retired, went up to New England. I got out of there. But yeah. So concerning false allegations, let's get into that because that is, I'm lucky. I never had any false allegations, probably because all I did in college was study. But I mean, I'm a 32-year-old, white male, a white conservative heterosexual male. I did go to the University of Georgia. I knew some guys that had false allegations, and man, it not only did it cost them legally, but there's also an irreparable like social thing. You're in college, and it's like, oh, he's a rapist. It broke them. I mean, you're 21 years old. That breaks you. Now, granted, you kind of move on and go to graduate school, and it's in the past, but that's an insane thing that you cannot just throw to the wayside and say, oh, whoopsies, we'll just call a redo. Could you maybe go into how you are tackling false allegations?
Yeah, well, maybe we can start with Amber Heard and Johnny Depp.
Hmm.
That's a story that I think just about everybody followed last summer when the trial was ongoing. And just a quick summary. So there was a Amber Heard wrote an editorial in the Washington Post several years ago in which she didn't actually name Johnny Depp by name, but everybody interpreted her editorial as saying that yes, she had been severely abused in her relationship, and she used the phrase that she had filed a complaint and she had to endure society's wrath because she dared to file a complaint of abuse and sexual assault. Well, of course, that right there to say that a woman who claims she was sexually abused faces society's wrath, that's just clearly absurd and false. But that's actually that was the headline in the Washington Post editorial. So as a result, Johnny Depp filed a lawsuit claiming defamation. Defamation, of course, just means you told a public lie about me, and you're not allowed to do that. And so, long story short, at the end of so the jury ruled unanimously in favor of Johnny Depp, and ultimately Amber Heard agreed to pay him $1 million for this wrongful conviction or this wrongful allegation. So this case really reflects a growing, I'm going to use the word epidemic. We have an epidemic of false allegations in our society. And as you just said, Tommy, when you're accused of something serious like sexual assault, domestic violence, child abuse, and so forth and so on, this has severe repercussions on you personally. Some persons have committed suicide because of such allegations.
What can, because again, is it's like a retraction in the news. You can, headline Tommy Carrigan's a rapist, and then a week later put out a quiet retraction and say that was incorrect. That's out there now. And there are a lot of people who will only see the juicy headline and either not see the retraction or not care about the retraction. They've decided in their mind what there is. That is
He
a
must have done something, right?
yes, he did something. There's a
Right.
reason why it was out there. The retract in reality is no. And it's just, and then you can tie into, well, why did they do that? Is he a business figure? Is this a corporate warfare? Is it a political figure? Is it a geopolitical thing? Is it whatever? Is it just, is it just drama? But it's you can't undo it. Is there Is there any way to realistically curb this from happening? Or is it simply, do we have to rely on the old deterrence? Do you just have to make an example of people that do false allegations to the point where you don't want to do it? I will never get in my car. I'll never get behind the steering wheel if I have a beer in my system because it's just not, I don't want to lose my license. I don't have that money. I don't want that on my resume. Deterrence works.
So yes, certainly prevention, avoiding these situations is certainly a good move. Um, but in the case of Johnny Depp, he had not abused Amber Heard either physically or psychologically. However, the converse was true. We know, in fact, many people do not know that Amber Heard had been previously arrested. She had been in a relationship with a female lover, and Amber Heard had been arrested in the airport in Seattle, Washington, for abuse, physical abuse of her former spouse. Also, it was just clear from her testimony that she was psychologically abusive of Johnny Depp. At one point, she actually said to him, "Oh, go ahead and claim that you're a victim of domestic violence. See who believes you because you're a man." Well, A, right there, she's admitting that she committed domestic violence. B, is she's trying to humiliate Johnny Depp uh, because on the basis of his sex. So yes, prevention is part of the picture, but I think we also need to put very much the thumb of responsibility on prosecutors. Every jurisdiction in the United States has a law against call it false swearing or defamation or impairing the process of justice. But usually prosecutors will not go after even a blatant case of false allegation because, quote, they don't want to deter further future victims from filing their case. Now, I say the word quote because it's almost a phrase that you hear over and over again. It's almost like they've been, they've been brainwashed to say those words over and over again in order to justify not prosecuting false accusers. But yes, prosecutors have to start enforcing the law.
Again, what is their incentive to? If I'm just pure, kind of cold-hearted, objective speaking, if I'm a prosecutor and I'm just following the money and I'm soulless, I'm gonna go where the money lies. Why are we even in a position where we have to say prosecutors need to start enforcing the law? Why aren't they already? And excuse me if that's a simpleton question.
Yeah, I don't think it's an economic factor here. I think it's more of an ideological factor because we're talking about a narrative here. It's driven by the feminist movement, and the feminist movement has a knack of promoting various narratives that turn out to be either only half the truth or in some cases entirely wrong. One of those narratives is believe women. Um, so that narrative was put out there several years ago. Um, Intellectually, people said, "Well, of course that's ridiculous," but a lot of this narrative is designed to affect people's sort of subconscious thinking. So when you have prosecutors who already have a relationship, most prosecutors work closely with what are called victim advocates, and those victim advocates are by and large are female. Um, and the prosecutors, to a large extent, have bought into the feminist ideology about, oh, only men are abusive, and women can only be victims. The truth is, and this is according to the Centers for Disease Control, there's actually more male victims of domestic violence each year than female victims. But again, you're not going to hear that fact being uttered by feminist organizations.
I'd never heard that. That's wild. Um, So if it's more of an ideological, I threw out the economic incentive just as one among many. If it's an ideological thing, then are we perhaps, and this would require a little more zooming out in terms of chronology, are we looking at natural selection of ideologies? Much like fashion, at one point bell bottoms were in, they are not anymore. There was no top down central government control that said we're phasing them out. They just came and went. Trends do. Punk rock, whatever. Are we just looking at an ideology going through the, I guess, going through the gauntlet of natural selection? And if it, over time ruins enough people's lives, it will go by the wayside, much like the idea that women belong in the kitchen or that you can own a slave or whatever. Are we just, and that's not a satisfying answer because that takes a lot of time and we might not see it in our lifetimes. But could that be one way to look at it?
Yeah, Tommy, I think you're really asking the question, where does this ideology come from? And actually, we know the answer to that question. This ideology is Marxist in origin.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go back and turn back the hands of the clock of time to the mid 1800s. That's when Karl Marx and George Engels were formulating their theories of Marxism. Um, and of course, we all think of Marxism in terms of eliminating class differences, but it turned out that that theory of the oppressor class and the oppressed class didn't work out because you may recall the British the Industrial Revolution began about 20 years after Marx was writing all these ideas, and with that Industrial Revolution was an extraordinary expansion of the middle class. So right there, the whole Marxist theory kind of went out the window. But along came the feminists who said, well, maybe we can't obliterate differences of class, but why don't we try to obliterate differences of sex? And so, yes, that's exactly what they did. Um, so both Marx and George Engels talked about the family as the epicenter of the oppression of women. So, surprise, surprise, feminists set out to weaken and destroy the family. And I'm not using those words. I'm not using hyperbole. Those are the exact words that feminists use to describe their planned approach to the family. So how do you destroy the family? Well, the most direct way is to go after the weakest link. The weakest link is the father, because the father does not have a biological link or a strong biological link to the children. So that's exactly what's happened. The feminists have uh, used the domestic violence issue in order to stereotype and vilify men as abusers. And again, the facts are from the Centers for Disease Control. This is there's more male victims than female victims, but the truth never has never been known to stop a good ideology.
Yeah, can't let that pesky thing get in the way. Um, this could be the further destruction of the, and you don't even have to be an ideologue or a feminist ideologue to use the ideology, right? There's the useful idiots. If you are a power hungry individual, you might not have an ideology, communism, democracy, capitalism, whatever you want to call it, baby. It is the key to my power. A true psychopath wouldn't care. Put on the mask. I don't care. What do you want? You want me to be a Christian? Here I am. You want me to be whatever. They want the power, right? Because they want, they want to project their power over others, blah, blah, blah. They might be simply using that for the destruction of the nuclear family, because then you can't just get rid of the father and have no consequences. If the father is traditionally the breadwinner, who's bringing the bread? Well, then that comes into the idea of daddy government's here for you. And if you're on the dole from daddy government, if daddy government also says you can't express this opinion, that's hate speech. Yeah, they'll go along with it. Is that so? Or am I maybe seeing Am I seeing shapes and figures where they might not be? Is there no one pulling the strings? Is this just a chaotic, turbulent arisal of an ideology that is going through the throes of natural selection? Or is it a top down control mechanism for people to go, hey, this is going to, we're going to have the disinformation governance board. We're going to have, central bank digital currency, and we're going to have all of this so I can control your life.
Yeah, Tommy, I think you've diagnosed the problem exactly. Is that there is this powerful ideology, and it does have strong appeal to people with a feminist mindset. And so again, the feminists have set out to weaken, to marginalize, uh, to destroy the family and make the government the central unit of society instead of the family. And so yeah, so I would say that most prosecutors in general are not feminist ideologues, but they've been inculcated with the narrative about um, male abusers and female victims. And, and clearly there is a strong piece of chivalry in this whole equation. So we can't ignore that as well. But bottom line is that we do have a very powerful force at work, uh, both in the United States and more broadly internationally, that's working to marginalize fathers and destroy the family.
I mean, a strong family unit really is the bulwark against an overreaching state, right? I mean, you have the strong father figure, and I'm blessed to have an incredible father and an incredible mother who gasp have the traditional feminine and masculine roles. I don't care. I liked how I turned out. Having them,
Right.
they have a strong instilling of beliefs and values, and set an example and practice what you preach. It makes you less susceptible to someone coming on TV and telling you what's wrong and what's right. And you go, no, I know, my dad taught me this. I don't care if you guys think this is fine. I know what's right and what's wrong. Yeah, man, if you're on a path to power, that's a hurdle. That's a splinter that you need to remove. And I guess back to natural selection, we will see which one is stronger. Will the family unit survive in the face of a concerted effort to destroy the nuclear family? Is Which I guess is almost kind of fatalist. You just step back and say, I guess we'll see who will win, or can you throw your hat in the ring and, I don't know, point out what happens when a family's destroyed?
Yeah, I think we can't sit back and watch history unfold because the forces of destruction are powerful. Um, if we want to stop that, uh, we have to step into the ring. As Teddy Roosevelt said, we have to step into the ring
The man of the
because
arena.
that into the arena because that's where the action is. And we can't be complacent in the face of such strong attacks. If I can, let's come back to this issue of false allegation where
Sure.
we started our conversation. So we did talk about Amber Heard and Johnny Depp as just one example, but 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, we actually did a national survey to assess what is the extent of false allegations. And so this was done by a group called YouGov. It's an independent uh, public opinion polling company. And so they found that in the United States, 8% of Americans say they have been falsely accused of abuse, domestic violence, sexual assault, child abuse, so forth and so on. 8%. But then we've continued to see these allegations. Michael Irvin is another person we can talk about if you
Hmm.
want to.
I'd love
But
to.
we keep seeing these sort of nonstop these string of false allegations. So we decided to redo the identical survey, same questions, same methods, and we just did it earlier this month, in March, an early part of March. And guess what? The number has increased. The number of Americans saying they have been falsely accused has jumped from 8% 2 years ago to now 10%, 2023. That's that's a fairly big jump in just a 2 year period. So again, we're seeing this problem of how false allegations, they're not, very seldom are they punished, and very often they result in a series of uh, it can affect the child custody awards. It can have result in men being kicked out, unfairly being kicked out of colleges, and many more consequences, like the Michael Irwin case.
Could you maybe expand on the Michael Irwin case and enlighten my audience and myself as to the nitty-gritty?
Yeah, sure. So Michael Irvin used to play for the Dallas Cowboys, all-star player, wide receiver. And so now he's been working as a TV commentator,
Hmm.
and he was at the Super Bowl in Phoenix recently. He was doing on-air commentary about the upcoming Super Bowl, and one night he at his hotel, he got a knock on the door from the hotel personnel saying, "Michael, you have to leave the hotel right now." So he said, what the heck are you talking about?"
Yeah.
And the hotel personnel said, "You've been accused of sexual assault, sexually assaulting a hotel employee." And of course, he was flabbergasted and just didn't know what to think. Anyway, so here's the story, what happened. And I've actually seen the videotape. So Michael Irvin came into the Marriott Hotel, and he was walking towards the elevator, and a female employee approached him. She came towards him to initiate a conversation. They talked for less than 2 minutes. Um, at they were obviously She was obviously telling jokes, because you can just tell by looking at the body language about they were just having a friendly conversation. Uh, there was no aggressive body language by Michael Irvin. They just were chatting together for a while, and then after the less than 2 minutes, they went their separate ways. He went to his hotel room, and end of story. Well, it wasn't the end of the story, because she then went to her personnel manager at the hotel and said she had been a victim of sexual assault. Well, again, I have watched the entire videotape. There was absolutely nothing that you could construe in any way as being sexual assault. Um, even I mean, one of the allegations was he was making inappropriate comments. Well, look at the body language. There was at no point during the 2 minutes did she take a step back. Did she withdraw from the conversation? Did she terminate? No, it was obviously, it was a friendly conversation throughout. So now he was accused of this heinous action. No evidence except for one woman's word. So now Michael Irvin has sued for $100 million. So anyway, so this case is right now being litigated, but this just gives you an example of the absolute uh, frivolous nature, unfounded nature of so many of these false allegations.
And this is all speculation, but like, what in God's name, in general and specifically this case, makes someone do this? Is it simply I'm gonna get a payout? Am I just crazy and this gets me off? Well, not that you have the answer, but if we're to just kind of speculate why? I mean, in theory, I get the money idea. You're broke, you work at a hotel, you see yeah, whatever. Pretty girl goes up, says to them, yeah, maybe get a payout, you're retired. But really, like the average person can just do that?
Yeah, I mean, it's really a sad day, because uh, Michael Irwin has had a couple press conferences, and he comes across as a friendly, gentle guy. He is not obnoxious or aggressive in his body language or his tone. He's just a nice guy. So uh, that, his overall demeanor is one of bewilderment. He just can't believe that he's been accused of this heinous action, especially when the entire encounter was captured on videotape, and the woman never went to his room.
If I'm a if I'm a multi-millionaire athlete or artist and I'm a guy, why would you not start wearing body cams like the police? I mean, at a certain point, like, why would you? I would if I was a Tom Brady or a whatever Red Hot Chili Peppers. Like, I would be wearing a body cam at all times because this seems you are a prime target, no different than you're a just like a how ExxonMobil executives used to be kidnapped in Africa. Like you're a prime target because of who you are. You're now a target for false allegations. I think in all of my wisdom in this topic, which is nothing, I imagine what will lead to a sea change is unfortunately not more false allegations, but rather women who have been raped will come out and say these false allegations have personally screwed me because I was raped. And this guy was able to ride the wave of sympathy for masculine figures. Unfortunately, I think that's probably what's going to change it.
Yeah, Tommy, I don't know, I'm not gonna try to predict the future here
Sure.
with a lot of accuracy, but I think, I mean, we absolutely have to turn this around. I mean, we are headed, I mean, we're basically talking about respectful relationships between men and women. You can't have a family, and you can't have a society, if men and women are constantly fearful and suspicious of each other. How is this going to turn around? Well, um, yes, true victims need to speak out and say, these false allegations are harmful to me. We need women in general to speak out and say that these kinds of actions reflect poorly on women in general. Uh, we need more men to stop acting on chivalry and start acting on the basis of justice. Yeah, I mean, we need prosecutors to go after these cases. It's This is a crisis of our facing our society.
Yeah, and man, if it all doesn't result in the same thing, if men and women are constantly on guard, that will, over enough time and enough people, that will decrease the number of nuclear families. It kind of seems to be the goal.
And it's not just the goal. We are seeing a decrease in marriage rates, a decrease in fertility rates. Um, in some countries in Europe, um, which is even more severe than the United States. Um, they're talking about this demographic crisis about, hey, we don't have enough, you know, young people in the pipeline to pay the Social Security benefits for the retiree population, and ultimately you're talking about, well, you need to have more immigrants to come into your country if you're going to sustain the population level. I mean, we're talking about real, fundamental issues of how do you keep a society going when, it's called the fertility replacement rate. It needs to be an average of 2.1 children per woman in order for a society just to maintain its current population. But many countries in Europe have fallen to 1.6 children on average per child per woman. So you can see, um, we're talking about some serious problems with the basic demographic foundation of society.
How would you, and I know we got to wrap this one up. I don't want to keep you for 30, but how does this even, I mean, do you offer like government incentive to have kids? I mean, is that a remedy?
That's actually being done, I believe, if I'm correct, in Hungary. they're doing that. Um, and I don't think that's a bad idea. Uh, I think though we really need to go after some of these more fundamental
Mm.
issues like false allegations, um, and people, men who have their lives ruined because of a false allegation.
I think you're correct. Let me pull up the sorry, pulling up. Yeah, so I was gonna say, your website will be in the description. If anybody wants to go visit you and check your stuff out, how can people help the Save organization?
Well, I think, I mean, we are a policy organization, so we are uh, connecting with lawmakers. Actually, we had a lobbying event just last week in the U.S. House of Representatives. So I guess my answer would be get involved with your local political activities. When prosecutors are up for election or re-election, ask them, what is your track record in terms of prosecuting false allegations? Um, and other ways as well. But those are just a few ideas how to turn the tide on the false allegations.
Yeah, I think you said it correctly. We can't just sit by and watch history unfold because it's certainly unfolding in a negative manner. I don't know. It's doesn't I guess if it can happen I guess here would be a more of an incentivizing takeaway for the men listening. If it can happen to Michael Irwin, it can happen to you and me. So that's maybe don't take this, don't let this go. Don't let this slide by without doing anything. But Dr. Bartlett, I said I'll let you go. Thank you so much for coming on here, man. It was a pleasure talking to you. I'd love to have you on here again. You seem to be very passionate about this, and it is an important thing. Luckily, I'm an antisocial hermit who stays in my apartment and just works on my podcast, so I don't need to worry about any sexual allegations. But the average guy does. So maybe that will be the end result is we'll all turn into hermits and monks. But thank you so much, sir. Thank you for coming on here. Thank you for your time, and God bless you and what you're doing.
My
Thank you.
pleasure.
Yes,
Good to
sir.
talk to you, Tommy. Bye
You
bye.
too. Bye bye. Thank you so much for watching.